The first letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, tucked beneath Sandra Morrison's windshield wiper like a parking ticket. She plucked it free, squinting against the September sun as she unfolded the crisp white paper. Notice a violation. It read in bold red letters. Your front yard garden is in direct violation of Meadowbrook HOA guidelines, Section 4.2, approved plant species. You have 14 days to remove all lavender plants and replace them with HOA-approved alternatives. Failure to comply will result in fines of $100 per day. Sandra's hand trembled slightly as she read it again. Her lavender garden, the one she'd spent 3 months planning, planting, and nurturing, the one that had finally started to bloom in gorgeous purple waves, attracting butterflies and bees from across the neighborhood, the one that reminded her of her grandmother's garden in Provence, where she spent the happiest summers of her childhood. She looked up at her modest 2-story home, then across the street where Patricia Cunningham stood on her pristine porch, arms crossed, watching. Even from this distance, Sandra could see the satisfied smile on Patricia's face. Patricia, the HOA president, whose own yard was a sterile expanse of regulation grass and exactly 3 boxwood shrubs, evenly spaced. Sandra took a deep breath and walked across the street. "Patricia," she called out, waving the letter, "can we talk about this?" Patricia descended her porch steps with the bearing of a queen approaching her subjects. She was impeccably dressed as always, her silver hair sprayed into submission, her white linen pantsuit without a single wrinkle. "Sandra, good morning," Patricia said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I assume you received a notice? Lavender is on the approved list?" Sandra asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "It's just a herb. It's beautiful. It's beneficial for pollinators, and it's not hurting anyone." Patricia's smile tightened. "The rules are the rules, dear. We can't have everyone planting whatever they want. Today it's lavender. Tomorrow someone wants pink flamingos and garden gnomes. We have standards in Meadowbrook Estates. But lavender is hardly. 14 days, Sandra." Patricia turned back toward her house. "The rules apply to everyone equally. If I made an exception for you, I'd have to make exceptions for everyone." Sandra stood there, the letter crumpling in her fist, watching Patricia's perfectly postured retreat. Something hot and defiant sparked in her chest. That evening, Sandra sat at her kitchen table with her laptop, digging through the HOA bylaws. Her teenage daughter, Emma, sat across from her doing homework. "Mom, you've been reading that for 2 hours, Emma said, looking up from her calculus textbook. "What are you looking for?" "A loophole," Sandra muttered, scrolling through page after page of dense legalese. Patricia can't just wait. She stopped, reading a particular section 3 times to make sure she understood it correctly. "What?" Emma leaned forward. "According to Article 7, Section 3, any HOA rule can be overturned or amended if 20% of homeowners sign a petition requesting a vote, and then a simple majority approves it at a general meeting." Sandra looked up, her eyes bright. "Emma, how many houses are in this neighborhood?" "I don't know, maybe 50? So I need 10 signatures to force a vote." Sandra stood up, energized, and then 26 votes to change the rule. Emma grinned. "You're going to fight City Hall. Or, suburban Patricia." Over the next week, Sandra went door to door. She brought photos of her garden, articles about the importance of pollinator-friendly plants, and homemade lavender cookies. The responses varied wildly. Tom and Rebecca Chun, 2 doors down, signed immediately. "We've been wanting to plant native wildflowers for years," Rebecca said. "Patricia shot us down every time." The Johnsons were sympathetic, but afraid. "We can't afford the fines if we get on Patricia's bad side," Mrs. Johnson said apologetically. Old Mr. Fletcher surprised her by signing with enthusiasm. "That woman tried to fine me for leaving my garbage cans out 15 minutes too long." 15 minutes. I'm 83 years old. I move slowly. By day 10, Sandra had 15 signatures, more than enough to force a vote. She submitted her petition to the HOA board with a sense of triumph. Patricia's response came within hours, a neighborhood-wide email. It has come to my attention that a resident is attempting to undermine the carefully crafted guidelines that maintain our neighborhood's property values and aesthetic appeal. While this resident claims to champion pollinators and beauty, what she really advocates for is chaos and erosion of our community standards. I urge all residents to vote no on this reckless proposal at next week's emergency meeting. Sandra read it twice, her face flushing with anger, but she didn't respond in kind. Instead, she got to work. She created a presentation with photos of beautiful, well-maintained gardens featuring lavender and other non-approved plants. She gathered statements from 3 local landscapers about the benefits of diverse plantings. She even got a letter from a botany professor at the nearby university explaining how HOA monoculture lawns were contributing to local bee population decline. The night before the meeting, Emma found her mother still awake at midnight, rehearsing her speech. "Mom," Emma said gently, "it's just lavender." Sandra looked up, and Emma was surprised to see tears in her mother's eyes. "It's not just lavender, sweetheart. It's about whether we live in a neighborhood or a dictatorship. It's about whether beauty and nature matter or just conformity." And honestly, Sandra smiled through her tears. "It's about your grandmother. When she died last year, I planted that lavender to remember her. Every time I smell it, I'm back in Province with her, and she's teaching me the names of flowers in French. And the world is full of purple and sunshine." She wiped her eyes. "Patricia wants me to rip out my memories and replace them with nothing, with emptiness that looks like everyone else's emptiness." Emma hugged her mother. "Then let's make sure everyone knows what they're really voting on." The community center was packed. Sandra hadn't expected this many people. But apparently neighborhood drama was compelling entertainment. Every seat was filled, with people lining the walls. Patricia sat at the head table with the other board members, looking confident and composed. She ran through the standard HOA business with brisk efficiency before finally acknowledging the petition. "We now come to the special matter. Mrs. Morrison wishes to speak about amending our plant guidelines. You have 10 minutes, Sandra." Sandra stood, her legs shaky, her presentation clicker-slick with sweat in her palm. But as she began to speak, something settled inside her. She told them about her grandmother. She showed them photos of her garden, and dozens of others like it, beautiful and vibrant. She explained the environmental benefits, the aesthetic value, the simple joy of growing something you love. "I'm not asking for chaos," she said, looking around the room. "I'm asking for choice. For the freedom to plant something beautiful that harms no one and helps our local ecosystem. I'm asking us to be a community that values life and diversity, not just rigid conformity." When she finished, the room was silent for a long moment. Then Tom Chin started clapping. Rebecca joined him. Within seconds, half the room was applauding. Patricia's face had gone rigid. "Yes, very moving. However, property values." "I'm a real estate agent," interrupted a woman Sandra didn't know well, standing up. "And I can tell you that diverse, beautiful landscaping increases property values. Sterile, identical lawns? Not so much anymore. Buyers want character." Others began speaking up. Mr. Fletcher talked about the tyranny of petty rules. A young mother spoke about wanting her children to see butterflies. Even some people Sandra thought would oppose her stood to voice support. When Patricia finally called for the vote, Sandra held her breath, all in favor of amending the plant guidelines to allow a broader range of species, subject to reasonable maintenance standards. Hands rose across the room. Sandra counted frantically. 28, 29, 30. Those opposed. Patricia's hand shot up, along with perhaps a dozen others. Patricia's mouth became a thin, tight line. "The motion passes," she said, her voice strained. "The board will draft amended guidelines within 30 days. The room erupted in chatter. People crowded around Sandra, congratulating her, asking about plants, sharing their own garden dreams. In the chaos, Sandra saw Patricia gather her papers and slip out a side door, her spine rigid with fury. 3 weeks later, Sandra stood in her front yard in the early evening light, watching bees drift lazily between lavender blooms. The scent was intoxicating, sweet and herbal and full of memory. Across the street, Patricia's lawn remained perfectly manicured and utterly lifeless. But next door to Patricia, the Chens had started planting wildflowers. 2 houses down, someone was installing a butterfly garden. Even old Mr. Fletcher had put in some cheerful daisies. Emma came out to join her mother, slipping an arm around her waist. "Grandma will be proud," she said softly. Sandra smiled, breathing in the lavender-scented air. "Yeah," she said, "she really would." In the distance, a monarch butterfly danced from bloom to bloom, painting the air with orange and black wings. And for the first time in months, Sandra felt something settle in her chest. Not just victory, but peace. The lavender would stay, the memories would stay, and Meadowbrook Estates would bloom.